I will try to speak louder so that you guys can hear me. So, and Gloria's going to leave early. Okay. All right, the first public appearance is Sarah Anderson.
Ready?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time to listen to our concerns with the current referendum proposals. My name is Sarah Anderson, and I have an 11th, 9th grader at Madison West and a 7th grader at Hamilton Middle School. I'm here to speak about how the 2020 referendum proposal fails to adequately meet the needs of our students. As you may be aware, other districts in our area have put significantly larger referendums to the voters in those districts, and they have overwhelmingly passed. I say significantly larger based on per student basis. Here's a quick snapshot of that. Sun Prairie, per student, is looking at a referendum for 101 and 422,000. Verona's referendum gives per student 108 to 161. This is the number of high school students and divided by the cost of the referendum. Middleton has 2,243 students, and there's a 63,753. Madison has 7,345 students in their high schools, and we're looking at a 282.672 million referendum, which equates to 38,000 per student. So a third or a fourth of what the other schools think their students deserve. It is clear to those of us who are actively involved and dedicated to the growth of our student body that the current proposals for our 4 Madison High School fails way short of what is needed. Many of you have heard from us before, and we will continue to hear from those of us who use the facilities on a daily basis. I am confident that when you have the opportunity to see the state of our facilities, or lack thereof, you will also agree that even the gold option is insufficient to bring MMSD up to educational and athletic standards of all other Big 8 and surrounding schools. MMSD needs to be forward-thinking, as these proposals are only the bare minimum. It is our concern that these proposals will again leave us with hundreds of millions of dollars of needed renovation and maintenance even after completing what has been proposed. The 4 proposals at the gold option give $282.872 million. However, over $100 million alone is needed for deferred maintenance. This leaves roughly $182 million for renovations across 4 MMSD high schools. So again, I'd like to remind you of the referendums that have been passed in communities that are a fraction the size of Madison, that have allocated significantly more money on a per student basis, more money for renovations and updates for schools that were built decades after these schools were built. These districts have decided that this is the minimum they need to spend to ensure a quality education for their students. With our current proposals, we as a community are saying that our students only deserve a quarter of that. As a district, we need to look into the future so we don't put our students in this position again. Straight out of the Zimmerman proposal, this is a quote from the proposal. To remain competitive in the Big 8 Conference and retain quality athletic talent Madison youth have developed. Damn it. So fast.
Thank you. All right, Jackie Cooper, you're up next.
My name is Jackie Bastier Cooper. I'm a West parent, and I'm here to talk about the facilities proposal. I am asking the board to view the gold option and proposal as a starting point for all 4 high schools. The Madison schools are so far behind the rest of the schools in the area for both building and athletic facilities that I implore the board to start at the gold option and add to it if you really want to make a difference for the future of the students in Madison high schools. In the past 2 years, over $452 million has been approved by voters for building and improving 3 high schools in the area, which amounts to about $8,000 per resident for those communities. If we passed a referendum for the same amount, $452 million, that would amount to about $1,800 per resident in Madison to improve the 4 high schools. The current gold option is $283 million. There needs to be a platinum option, at least equal to $452 million, to make a difference for the future of the high schools. And the athletic facility improvements are just as important to improvements in the building. For West, which has the largest number of students in the district, these improvements start with a new pool and the addition of a field house on the West property at a minimum. It has been proven nationwide that athletics benefit student outcomes in school, and in 2015, MMSD did their own study. Your research showed that MMSD interscholastic athletes outperformed similar non-athletes on all academic and behavioral outcomes. The differences in overall graduation rates is pretty significant from that research. At East, with students that had no athletics during their high school career, 65% graduated. If they had 1 year, 81% graduated. If they had 2 or more years of athletics, 94% graduated. At Memorial, it went from 69% with no athletics in their 4 years to 95% if they did 2 or more years for graduations. La Follette, 74% to 98% of students graduated if they participated in 2 or more years of athletics in high school. West went from 75% to 98%. Talk about the achievement gap. Maybe athletics is part of it to solve some of those problems. For every 20 MMSD students participating in athletics for 2 or more years, 19 graduated. This is from your study that you did in 2015. MMSD students and parents are sick and tired of the old, dated facilities, especially for athletics. It is time to look to and plan for the future, and that future starts with a platinum option of at least $452 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Coleman.
Hi, my name is Brad Coleman. I'm the proud father of a West High School student athlete and another son who will attend West in the future. I am here today speaking on behalf of the West swim team and my family. I would like to thank the Operations Work Group and MMSD for giving me the opportunity to voice my opinions. My discussion pertains to a recommendation of gold level funding for a new swim facility at West High. Current facts about the West pool and locker rooms are as follows. From the long-range master plan, the grade given to the West specialty areas, which include the pool and locker rooms, was a D. Let me repeat that, a D. Why was it given a D? Fact number 1, the usage of the pool is extremely high. MSCR and other community use is far greater now than it was ever planned for. I think that's a good thing. I love that the community uses the pool, but that's definitely a factor in the overuse of that pool. Fact number 2, the seating is severely limited for hosting swim meets. There's not enough seating for families of West swimmers to watch an event, let alone for the visiting teams to have space. Fact number 3, the air quality in the pool has been so poor at times that adults have had trouble with their eyes watering, and swimmers have had sore throats and difficulty breathing due to chlorine gas in the air. This is a safety issue and completely unacceptable. Fact number 4, the locker rooms are rusted out relics, filthy and full of cockroaches. This is also a safety issue and unacceptable. Now let me tell you about our West High student athletes that are forced to use this antiquated facility. In the last 2 years, the boys have won back-to-back WIAA Division I state championships, produced at least 4 Division I college swimmers, and broken way too many records to even state here. Oh, and did I mention, the combined grade point average for this team is 3.7. Those are student athletes. That's what we need to be supporting. In summary, West High is in need of renovation in many areas, but the most used, most deserving area that must be updated is the pool facility. I implore you to recommend gold level funding for a new West High pool. Our student athletes deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin Weiss.
I'm Erin Weiss, and I'm here to voice my concerns for the athletic facilities at West High School and ask that you go for the gold level at a minimum for the 2020 referendum. My kids have participated in swimming, volleyball, baseball, and ultimate frisbee over the past 8 years, and I can tell you there has not been one sport where we have had adequate facilities. I know you've heard about the lack of gym space, athletes having to travel to other schools to practice, dangerous conditions at the practice fields, and the abysmal pool and locker room conditions, and I fully agree with all that. I know tackling these issues will require a lot of money, but I believe our kids deserve better. Because getting a good education is, of course, the most important part of high school, but participating in sports can complement that experience and have a positive impact on students' scholastic performance and also teach lifelong lessons. Student athletes learn teamwork, self-discipline, accountability, time management, and other important life skills. Being active has many positive physical as well as mental health benefits. Students supporting their school teams help build school spirit and creates a sense of community. but only if they can actually attend the events. Joining a sports team at West as a freshman helps make entering a huge school less daunting, as you immediately gain an instant group of friends. It is unfortunate that there may be many students who choose not to participate because they know they will have transportation issues, or there are other students who may be cut from sports because team numbers have to be limited for space reasons. In regards to the pool and locker rooms, I believe there are many health and safety issues. I hate to think of all the students who have suffered due to poor ventilation and water quality over the years, leading to many having persistent coughs and using inhalers only during swim season. While they have tried to address the ventilation issue every year, I believe the only real solution is to build a new pool. And in order to bring not only the air quality, but also the pool and deck size up to current standards and usage. The lanes are too narrow for swimmers to practice safely as a group, with some injuries, including concussions in the past, coming from kids running into each other and walls. Deck space that is so narrow we can hardly have more than one row of spectators without impeding the swimmers' and officials' ability to walk safely around the pool. This means hardly any parents, let alone other students, can come and view and cheer on the swim team. Often visiting team parents stay away because we are known for our lack of parking and deck space. If the pool had a diving well, MMSD divers would not have to travel to Middleton for practice, making diving a more attractive sport to join. Regarding lack of gym space, you've heard how this affects students, but I also think it affects our ability to attract and retain athletic directors to West. We are now in our 8th AD in my son's 4-year high school career. I think the challenges are unique to the AD at West, as they not only have to schedule practices and home events at West, but also at other schools, as well as the transportation needed to get there and the budget issues that arise from those added costs. The AD and even the trainer also have to travel to other sites to attend home events, sometimes leaving our athletes at West with no one to turn to when an injury or other issue occurs. Coaches have to constantly jockey for gym space and sometimes end up spreading practices out over several hours, which is not ideal for their schedule nor the students. I believe we need a field house and a new pool as a starting point to bring our facilities on par with other local high schools and give access to athletics for all students.
Thank you. Jaden Weiss.
Hi, my name is Jaden Weiss, and I'm a senior at Madison West High School. I'm here to tell you why my school needs a major upgrade and why specifically the swim team needs it. My team this year just won our 2nd state championship in a row. Some people think that because we are so talented, we don't need a new pool, but the truth is that we just have done a really good job working with what we've got. But what we have comes with a lot of pains and sacrifices. Sacrifices like our lungs, where most of us have to use inhalers to get through practice every day because the air quality is so poor. Or our wrists, because the lanes are so thin that our arms hit each other when we swim past one another. Pains like seeing roaches crawl around our team room every day, or seeing tiles slowly fall off our walls. Our swimmers deserve a safer and better place to spend our hours every winter in. The other tragedy, though, is comparing Middleton to West. They can fill their roster to the max because they have to have the space to do so, where we have to cut swimmers every year because there is only a certain amount of 6-foot teenagers that we can pack into our pool. Madison is the 6th best ranked swim city in America. We have one of the largest outdoor swim meets of the summer, with over 2,500 kids participating on summer swim teams. So it's sad that some of them can't continue their swimming careers just because they are slightly slower than the rest and go to a school with a pool slightly smaller than the rest. In some cases, kids are even completely turned off of the idea of attempting to swim because of our pool. We need to be drawing in these kids that grow up in such a great swimming community and encouraging them to keep competing in high school, because it's been one of the best experiences of my life. So to end, I'd like to leave you with a couple real quotes from real articles written by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Swim Coaches Association. Madison West ended Madison Memorial's Big 8 Conference unbeaten streak, topping the Spartans before a crowd squeezed into the Regent's bandbox of a pool Friday night. And West topped the Cardinals decisively 104-66 at their home sardine can of a pool. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Kramer. You have to go up there, yeah. Otherwise people can't see you or hear you.
Several of us are here tonight. Taylor's on her way, and we're here only to say again that we're very anxious to help with any pathways plan, that any ITC pathways plan. any Black Excellence Plan. Wait, there's another one. Oh yeah, access to advanced learning. We know that's on the agenda for tonight. So we're here only to offer again our assistance, our expertise, and to demonstrate again our willingness to help and be partners with our Madison schools. That's it.
Thanks, Jim. Taylor is up next. Is she here? Taylor Kilgore. Yeah.
Taylor's on her way. Mondays are, weekdays at 5 o'clock are really tough for us because it's right in the middle of when we're really busy, but Taylor's on her way.
Thanks, Jim. All right, Suzanne Traber?
Did you push the button? Am I on? Okay. When I start.
Usually waits,
Got it.
yeah.
So
Maybe
good
every second.
evening. My name is Suzanne Triber, and I'm a grateful parent of one West alum, one West senior, and one West freshman. I'm speaking to you today about the facility plans for the 4 high schools in our city, particularly the plan for West. When I asked my son to read what I was going to be sharing with you tonight, he said, "So basically, Mom, what you want them to do is do more better." And then I paused and I said, "Yeah, I guess that's exactly right. That's what I'm asking. I'm asking you to do more better." So out of curiosity, I'm curious if anybody has ever toured West High School.
40 years ago.
Well, it looks about the same. Yeah. This past year. Thank you for coming. So, have you walked the grounds?
Yes, I have.
Have you gone to the bathroom?
Yep, the bathrooms were a problem.
All right, keep going.
Yeah. So I hope to change the fact that there are only a couple of people who have visited us recently. And I come to you with this. It is expected that student athletes overcome obstacles. They push their limits. They take risks. They're bold in how they compete. They're expected to, students are expected, particularly student athletes, are to think critically. They're expected to be strategic. They're expected to be team players and to challenge the status quo in order to be competitive and be the best version of themselves. Above all, as they meet these challenges, it is expected that they are role models and representatives of the West community and the Madison School District. And I think it's awesome. I love that they have these expectations and are built into the culture of being a West athlete. So the reason I share these expectations with you is because I would like for you to consider, how do you model to your student athletes what is expected of them is what you expect of yourself? I ask you, are you pushing limits? Are you taking risks, being bold, being a team player, thinking critically, strategizing, being curious, challenging the status quo in order to be competitive? Just think about that. As a new board, you have an opportunity to be different than the boards of the past 40 years. Boards that have not taken risks when it comes to maintaining and advancing environments for learning and competing. The boards that have not been bold, have not listened or thought critically about how to invest in our school grounds and athletic facilities, to the point, in my opinion, of being completely negligent in their responsibilities. So here's a chance for you to be different. Come to West, visit the grounds, its facilities, and areas used by its students and student athletes. I ask you to do what your predecessors haven't done. Value what is at the heart of our school. And I'd also like to share my email. You can contact me if you're interested in visiting. So everybody should have their pens out.
We can get it from Barb afterwards.
All right,
Yeah.
that sounds great.
Thank you.
Who do I give that to?
If you give it to Barb,
Okay,
she can
excellent.
distribute it.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I apologize, Chair.
You're good. All right, Helen Zhang.
Okay. So last week, Simpson Street Free Press was invited to attend a presentation by Mark Steinenberg, whose recent book, Language at the Speed of Sight, has been gaining a lot of attention. I was one of those who attended. I was struck by how much of the science of learning to read is already incorporated into the curriculum at Simpson Street Free Press. My name is Helen Zhang, and I have worked at Simpson Street Free Press since I was in middle school. I am a graduate of Madison Memorial High School and UW-Madison. And next year, I begin my graduate work at Columbia University in New York. And I currently serve as a science editor at Simpson Straight Free Press. I just want to say to all of you today that of all the facilities in Madison dedicated to out-of-school time, no single facility accomplishes as much as the Youth Center at Southtown Mall. For the past 10 years, I've seen it with my own eyes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Chris Gomez-Schmidt.
Hi, I'm here today to talk about the preliminary budget connected to the recommendations made by the Advanced Learning Advisory Committee as part of the Office of Civil Rights resolution process. A recent 8-page memo to the board details the senior leadership team response and leaves me with a lot of questions. More than 3 minutes allow me to detail. But I'll ask you, as you're considering this, to consider these 5 things. The need for an explicit advanced learning equity strategy, a proven model to use to provide talent development programming and really define what we mean by talent development. That AL staff providing some direct instruction to students, recognizing that that's essential for schools and how they operate. Asking what metrics are going to be used to measure the effectiveness of any pilots going forward. And really ask if the proposal that's being prepared for you is enough. I guess I say that because the committee made staffing recommendations to attempt to systematically address achievement disparities at the K-8 level that then lead to disparities in advanced coursework that we see at the high school level. We recommended adding 22 positions or another half-time position for each elementary and middle school, recognizing that investment is needed to build the capacity of schools to serve students in ways that they haven't done previously. Just for a minute, I want you to imagine this. If you were to take 10 students in first grade from every elementary school and include them in a talent development program across 32 elementary schools, that would be 320 students. If you were to add 10 students from fourth grade at every elementary school, that would be 640 students with access to high leverage academic options. Administration is recommending the addition of 2 K-8 positions to pilot a program at 2 elementary and 2 middle schools. This is certainly a good step forward, but to understand the scope of what's needed, that if you were to add 2 FTE a year, it would take 11 years to reach the goal of 1 full-time staff member per school. I'm also here to request a process for genuine community engagement that includes the AL Advisory Committee, the senior leadership team, and the board. In an ideal world, the committee and the administration would have already discussed these recommendations in depth and the rationale behind them. This would have included diving into the root causes the committee identified as driving the racial disparities we see at the high school level. The AL Advisory Committee is composed of parents, community members, AL staff members, and at least 1 principal. But voices are still missing. We need to include more families from different backgrounds, students, and also classroom teachers. Classroom teachers have not been involved, and they are tasked with doing much of what advanced learning proposes to do to meet student needs. So consider this an invitation for the senior leadership team, for the board, to join the next advisory meeting, which is going to take place on May 17th? May 23rd at 6 p.m. And I hope the discussion will include the district response to the recommendations and how to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just one more thing. Thank you, James and Dean, for your service to the board. I really appreciate talking to you over many years and all that you've done in your service to students and families. Thank you.
All right, Taylor is the last speaker, but she's not here, so we're gonna keep going. Thank you to our speakers. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes dated November 12th, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? All, Imad, your advisory vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes 6-0. So we have 3 things on the agenda tonight. The first one is a touch base on the budget for next year, given everything that we know at this point, as well as transition in the board, and then 2 policy updates. So I think we're going to try to run through the whole operations budget discussion before questions. So maybe if we can let Kelly get all the way through it. And I think Jen wants to say something at the beginning. So it's good.
Come on up. As you know, Kelly and Lisa are our budget team, so they'll be taking the lead on the presentation. But before they get going, I do want to say just a few things. I want to thank our current board for all of your hard work on getting the budget as far as we've taken it. We did pre-budget work, as you know, going back to November on compensation. The formal kickoff of the budget was in January, so we're solidly about 4 months into that process, and I think it's shaping up to be a really good one. As you know, we'll be presenting the full draft preliminary budget at the end of this month, where we'll be introducing and officially bringing on 3 new members of the board who will take it the rest of the way to a June approval of the preliminary budget. That transition time is always tricky, right? I mean, I remember a year ago when Gloria came on, mid-budget season, right? It's always an important process for us to quickly bring new board members up to speed. I think it's amplified by 3 this time around. And I just want to commit to everyone, both to the board members who are leaving, who've done the hard work to get it this far, and the new board members who are coming on. We're going to take great care in that transition. And I know our new board members are in the room tonight, which I really appreciate. Tonight we're going to give you some updates on timeline, which you see up here. We're going to talk in a very targeted way only about the remaining kind of open items that have not been previously discussed in the budget. We're going to focus our energy there. And then get your input and feedback on the engagement process that we'll use over the next couple of months so that we can finalize the budget in June. So with that said, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Kelly to walk you through the timeline.
All right, so as Jen said, we are in April. We've been working on this draft preliminary budget since November. So the conversation for tonight is to close those few remaining open items that the board has not yet been able to discuss before we release the draft preliminary budget to you at the end of April. When we release it to you, we also release it to the public, and that officially kicks off kind of our feedback phase of the budget, which then gets us to June. June is when the board officially votes on the draft preliminary budget, and then it becomes our preliminary budget. Once voted on and approved, that becomes our operating authority between June and October, which is why that budget is important in June. In October, the board would vote on the final budget, which then becomes our official budget and what becomes the tax levy that the board approves. So that's just kind of the high level of thinking where we're moving in this kind of 3 phases. We're just wrapping up the first phase, second phase, May and June, and then third phase goes July to October. Most of the work happening in October because we're primarily waiting for state numbers into the fall. So that's what we're gearing up for. You've seen the budget goals slide before and the guiding principle slide, so I won't spend a lot of time here. Just want to remind the board that one of the tests of our draft budget is built within these goals and the guiding principles. So both tonight and over the next 2 months, as we're really testing the budget for any last changes that might be needed, these are kind of 2 slides to keep in mind for that work. In addition to that, of course, our strategic framework is something that always guides our work around the budget. This slide is the highest level of the budget to keep in mind. The majority of these levers have already been discussed and are ready to be embedded within the April draft preliminary budget. And again, it's a couple of the strategic equity projects that we really want to close out with you today.
I can take this one. Kelly and I thought it was worth reminding the board and the public that not everything that we have committed to doing and are doing as described in the strategic framework is necessarily represented in the budget proposal. So that's just a reminder. A subset of things require significant budget investments, and that's what you see in that list of investments that we'll talk about tonight. That does not mean that there aren't significant actions taking place above and beyond the list of budget proposals you'll see today. So we're not going to go through this list. These are just some examples of priority work that is being executed on that will continue to be a priority in the future, but you won't see some of these things represented in budget proposals because we're using the existing budget that we have. So just as a reminder, strategic framework is sort of the larger umbrella. The budget proposal needs to be aligned to it, but it's a subset of actions that require significant budget investments, and that's what we want to focus our energy on as we wrap things up.
And so as we begin to focus, what's in front of you is the board's strategic equity projects, and that of which we've been able to balance the budget for funding thus far. So when you look at the chart, you'll see it aligns with the strategic framework. So our top level kind of headers on the left rows are the strategic framework, and then you have your projects listed underneath them with the relative investment that is needed for that project to occur next year. The items that are in white are the projects that we've been discussing since June and are planned to be embedded within the draft preliminary budget.
Since January.
Since January, and are embedded within the draft budget that you will see at the end of this month. Thank you, Jen. And we have items in yellow, and the items in yellow are the ones that we have not yet spoken about in depth, which is why they're the focus for the areas tonight.
So I'll talk about a couple of these. Lisa will talk about one. We're going to focus on 3 proposals tonight that we haven't discussed with the board yet. And I want you to know that our hope and our goal is to further flesh these proposals out over time. So we haven't completely figured them out. We really just want to get some early input, but we think that these are, for us, the last few kind of critical missing pieces from this budget proposal. But we do want you to expect that you'll see some version of this budget proposal in the April preliminary budget when we produce it. The first is related to the work of the Black Excellence Community Coalition. Everyone will remember in the new strategic framework that was launched in the fall, we made a central commitment to cultivating Black excellence in our school district. We also made a commitment to do so alongside and in collaboration with a community coalition comprised of mainly Black parents and Black parents of Black children in Madison. We have Nichelle Nichols has been the lead working with that community coalition. They have met at least a few times over the last couple of months and will continue to meet. They're still on track to produce a set of recommendations for all of us to look at and decide on how and to what extent we're going to put those recommendations into action. Our proposal to you is to create a fund that supports the work of the coalition. Right now, we're proposing a $250,000 fund. We think that's a nice, significant chunk of change. It would be recurring money coming out of Fund 80. And what we're imagining is that its main use would be to identify and potentially grow and expand already existing programs, like the Simpson Street Free Press. That would be a good example, that support our efforts to support Black youth in Madison. We want to have some time to work with the coalition to figure out how this fund would work. How would we receive proposals? How would they be vetted? How would those, how would the money be dispersed? We do want to remind the board, I mean, you have a board policy that requires us to bring to you for approval through the consent agenda anything that's over $20,000, so that still would be the case. So you'd have a chance to approve things as they come to us, but we think it's really important for this coalition to have access to money to support their recommendations. So that's just one big idea that we'd like to get your feedback on that will further flesh out in the coming weeks. Why don't we go to the next one, Cal? The second big idea is related to building capacity for our equity work. This is a big deal. You guys know that every year Around this time of year, usually around January or February, me and members of our team look at the central office organization to see if it's equipped to support the priorities that we've set as a school district. And every year we make some adjustments to the organization. We move people around a little bit. We kind of figure out where the pain points are and we make adjustments. That's what good organizations do. Every once in a while, we have come to the board to say we need more capacity, right? We need an extra position or, an extra position potentially in a department somewhere. And we're coming to you with that kind of proposal. We know that the central office as a whole and our schools as a whole have share responsibility for our equity work, right? It doesn't belong to any single person. And yet, we've realized that the equity work that we're doing is ramping up in such significant ways that we need more capacity. The department that's naturally been taking on this work is the Department of Family, Youth, and Community Engagement. Michelle Nichols, in particular, as the executive director, has a real skill set and passion for the work. She has taken it on in addition to all of the responsibilities that she already has. So our proposal for you is to add a position within her organization that would lead a subset of her work, the family engagement work in particular, so that Nichelle can be kind of freed up to commit even more time and energy to the equity work that she's doing. That's inclusive of the Black Excellence Coalition and support for it. That would be inclusive of partnering with central office departments and schools to help them analyze their own work, strengthen their equity lens, put the equity tool to use on a regular basis. As just examples. Again, we're still putting a few details right on the proposal, but we want you to know and expect that there'll be something related to this proposal in the budget book when you get it in April. And then we'll talk about 1/3 kind of new proposal that Lisa will take on. And that's related to advanced learning and deep learning.
Yep, thanks, Jen. So in order to commit to ensuring that all students have access to deeper learning experiences and advanced learning opportunities, while also ensuring that our youth of color have increased access to and are successfully participating in advanced coursework, these are our recommendations based on the response from the Advanced Learning Advisory Committee, or the ALAC for short. And this committee came together as the result of the agreement that we had with the Office of Civil Rights in our resolution. And we'll continue to communicate and collaborate with the ALAC group as we continue to implement the Advanced Learning Plan. So our recommendations fall in 3 areas that you can see here. We have recommended that we expand the Advanced Learning Specialist allocation and actually adjust the job title to 1.0 at 4 of our schools. We are recommending that we create a position to coordinate at the secondary level the advanced options that are available at secondary, to strengthen the transitions, and also to coordinate access to enrichment, to talent development, and advanced programming during our summer school program. And then finally, we took all of the ALAC committee recommendations around professional development and talent development and curriculum programming work, and have offered a recommendation in that area, again, to further meet the needs of youth of color. And then finally, the last line, we will continue to consult and work with our equal opportunity schools folks that have been working with our high schools, and they are working with us with their technical platform that helps us to identify students based on their interests and their trusted adults in high schools to expand access to advanced learning opportunities.
All right, and the last kind of open item with the board was really about our mental health and student education supports. So we've spent a lot of time talking about these bullets up on the screen in front of you, and they're already built in to the draft preliminary budget. That is inclusive of the $50,000 for the restorative justice professional development. It's embedded within the $200,000 MBEP professional development. So I wanted to make sure that was clearer. But it is these bullets are already built in. following that conversation, the board asked us to push further. They asked us to see if we could identify more funding within the budget, and if there were other high leverage investments that we should be making in the area of mental health and special education programming. Lisa's team went back to the drawing board and have come forward with these ideas for you for consideration. That includes expansion of CBITS for 9th grade. Right now, it's just in elementary primarily, and thinking about that as a 9th grade strategy is an area we would like to move towards. Second, thinking about our current very successful pilot in the special education team, which is based on transition planning as a child is moving from one school to another, one grade to another, helping to support that transition in the schools for that child. And third, we spent some time talking about our special education programming with the board over the last few months. An addition of 1.0 FTE would help us expand the program and open more seats. So kind of following the board's request.
Is that LEAP in neon that you're referring to in that third bullet? I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, LEAP in neon would be.
It's LEAP in neon.
Yeah. The primary examples of the program that would probably be on the board's mind. So kind of together, coming back to the board based on the requests you all made for us, we've identified $300,000 primarily Title IV funding, and we're seeing these as 3 high leverage strategies for consideration. This is just a picture for the visual learners in the group. It's everything I just said, but kind of categorized by the type of support and the level, elementary, middle, and high school. So those items that are in the black bold are those items that will already be built into the draft budget book when you receive it at the end of the month. The items in the red bold are the 3 proposals I just kind of made to you based on our last discussions. And those in the regular text are investments that over time the board has made that are continued investments in programs into our for our students. So when we go to pull it all together, with everything built into this presentation, our budget is balanced while understanding that we have a 6.2% levy increase. This is within the range that I presented to you back in January. It is on the higher end of our typical tax levy increase. That increase is based on a number of variables. It includes using our referendum to the max. It includes an assumption that we will likely lose the maximum amount of equalization aid this year. And it includes assumptions around our enrollment, 2X charter, voucher growth, and it includes an assumption that our tax-based growth will be approximately 7%. With all that considered, our actual general operating budget, what we are talking about and typically what we look at to spend, is actually only increasing 0.7%. So I just want to try to put that into perspective. Between the state aid loss and some of the other state programs that are moving, 0.7 is what our general operating budget was actually moving from year to year. For the average taxpayer, this equates to a reduction in mill rate, so an 8 cents per $1,000 on the average home, which is good news for the taxpayer. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end just there. And I think it's important at this time to note, if anyone saw the article on the front page of the paper over the weekend, Madison average home values are increasing at a very fast rate. Most of us have probably felt this in our own homes. And so I didn't want to end the conversation there. I think it's very important for us to realize that even though our mill rate is decreasing, the average homeowner will still likely see an increase on their property taxes due to the fact that the assessments are going up at a faster rate than our mill rate is decreasing. So right now, I think the paper this weekend used $300,000 as an average. We had already, on our own calculations, got to $295,000 as the likely average. So we're pretty much in the same zone as the city right now, and that would equate to an $86 increase on the average taxpayer home bill. So looking forward, end of the month, as I mentioned, we will release the draft preliminary budget book to you. We ask that we take 2 early votes in the April regular board meeting. The first is for the Accelerated Licensure in Special Education, our partnership with UW under Forward Madison. We ask that we vote early on this funding because this is a programming that really starts in summer, and we need to be marketing and recruiting in order to ensure that this is a successful start. So we do ask for your support at the end of April for that. And second is on the technology plan. We have, for the last couple of years, needed to vote early on the technology plan, and this year is no different. And that is because in order to launch for the start of the school year, we need to get the devices ordered, delivered, asset tagged, set up, and we do that primarily internally. So that is our work over the summer in order to get ready for the beginning of the school year. Nikki had previously asked if we could vote early on the behavior health in schools and the bounce back program. I would like some direction from the board tonight. If the board is supportive of that, we are happy to build that in to the end of this month for a budget vote. And last but not least, looking forward to May and June. Our budget website for this year is up if anybody wants to take a look. But at the end of the month, right after we release the draft budget, is when we will start kind of the formal feedback process. Working with Andrew's team as well as the communications team to kind of revamp how we do that. We're still going to try to use online as just a way to reach a broader base, but we'll use more social media and other avenues for outreach this year. And we have, we're trying a new way of using questions to really get deeper feedback than some of the surface level feedback we've been getting. So we're trying something new. Continuous improvement is absolutely what's on our mind. We'll do a May community meeting for budget feedback. The board, of course, has its budget hearings throughout May and June. And we'll do some targeted feedback sessions. We're currently in the process of planning to get on the calendar in May for the Black Excellence Community Coalition and the MMSD Teacher of Color meeting, for example. Last but not least, the board member amendment process will carry through May and June. I'll follow up with specific information with the board about deadlines and processes for that.
Thank you. And maybe just before we launch in, I got you first, Nikki, just to refresh what Jen had started with, one of the things I think for us as a group tonight is we can give kind of guidance on some of the topics here that are new, and we could also wait post budget book release and add those in through the budget book process, understanding that there's 3 new people joining us momentarily, and just either path is available to us, I guess. Yeah. Why don't you start, Nikki?
Do you want to explain the budget amendment process to the new people, or are you going to do that privately?
My goal is to do that in writing just so that everyone had the same information fully understood. But I'd leave it to Kate if...
No, I mean, I think, look, like the big distinction is if we give clear guidance right now, it'll get built into the budget book that's released. And if we don't, it will be built in through the budget amendment process, which any board member can raise. So. Nikki.
My second question is, could you please re-explain the parameters of Fund 80? Because Black Excellence, I want to be sure, I don't want to do all this work, which is absolutely necessary work, only to find out it doesn't meet one tiny piece of the criteria.
That's a great
and then
question.
we have to start over, and then we have to delay work that should have never been delayed to begin with.
Good point.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I'm going to not say this in state legal ease, but how I would explain it to just about anyone. So Fund 80 is community resource dollars. It is intended for community use, not to supplement academic services. So traditionally what that would mean is it would be for activities or staffing that happens after the school day. It would not be an activity that's embedded within the school day. Another restriction to think about is it shouldn't be used for like just MMSD students. If a parochial student wanted to gain access, for example, to one of the programs that might be funded, we would say yes. Really, I mean, those are kind of the 2 big parameters. It can't supplement the school day, and it has to be open access to the community. That doesn't mean if it's a youth program, an adult would need to be eligible, but we can't restrict it to just MMSD students. Those are primarily the 2 buckets that we usually look through.
And then, let me look at my notes. We won't be voting on Black Excellence Plan on April 30th, correct? Or will we? Is that an early approval or not?
No, and there's no Black Excellence Plan at this point. The coalition will be bringing the board a set of recommendations in June.
I was hoping to hear that because
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I'm not close enough in the community to know those needs without asking those needs. I did the same thing in disability, which is my community, and I respect being asked, so I'm really glad that you're doing that. The other, and my last question is on the budget website with the online people had said they had a hard time getting questions answered. Are we gonna, sometimes they said that either they were repetitive or they didn't get them answered quick enough. Are we going to increase per people? Are we going to put like maybe a frequently asked questions section maybe? That would be helpful.
Yeah, we certainly can. Do you think?
I'm happy to do a frequently asked question. I think that's a really good idea as the questions start to kind of trickle in through May and we start to identify, what are some of the themes. Absolutely, we can create something like that.
Can you explain the first part of her question, though? She said, she was saying
About
that
questions
that are coming in now, people are having trouble getting responded to. Can you look into that? And let
I have not received any questions that I have not answered to my knowledge.
Yeah, she's saying last year's.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was talking about last
Well,
year.
okay.
Sorry, Dean, I should have been more
I
clear.
didn't hear
Thank you on that.
So, Nikki, just to be clear, you're talking about the feedback
Yes.
button on the website
You got
that
it.
people might have not just given feedback, but put questions in there,
Yep.
and that the questions
Yeah.
weren't necessarily
So we
always
answered the
answered.
feedback portion.
Yeah, we can work on that.
All right.
Yeah, I think the feedback tends to be, combined and looked at every handful of weeks. So I think it's just a matter of people scanning it if there's questions that need to be answered on a more frequent basis. I'll absolutely look into that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Process-wise, we're not supposed to dialogue with people that make public comments, but we've heard several meetings now, a particular group from West High around the referendum concerns, and I agree that the four high school assessments that were done gave us an unfortunate analysis of what was by past boards they were unable to do. I disagreed that they did it intentionally. They were given, scores before us had choices they had to make based on the money they could get from state and federal, which has been inadequate.
The referendum's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I know, but I
Just
agree with
keep it-
those folks. And I'm violating some things because it's my last shot.
It's your last shot, so
You
make it quick.
know, so, and I think that they need to come back, so.
That's gonna keep us honest
The
here.
three that are gonna join us need to hear what they said, because some of these things we're addressing in our current budget, it's particularly the air quality at West High gym, or a pool that needs to get addressed. We can't wait for a referendum to deal with that, and I believe it has been. But about the budget itself, there were several things, particularly around deeper learning experiences, that part in there. My referendum that I put in over a month ago, I believe directly is related to a deeper learning experience through a program that we've been working with for a long time and have an established relationship, but nothing formal. So I am not an administrator or a principal or a teacher, and I never acted like that on this board. I never will be, but I'm here because of my experiences that I've had in the community with, and I'm a community worker, and years of experience of being a community organizer, so I know what works, and I brought a lot of that to this board, and it formed some of my decisions. So my decision to move this amendment to for $30,000 in support of the office at the Simpson office on Broadway, was to jumpstart a formal relationship that there's been ongoing discussions with them for a long time, and nothing seems to get there. So I wanted to say, okay, here, do this. It's a simple one. It's they need rent support. Let's do that, and then move it. Then you can take it from there. So that is something that I want the next board to continue looking at and formalize this relationship with a group that has shown demonstrated academic improvements of primarily around 90% of the kids there are kids of color. So, and of those, majority of them are our black kids and excelling. We've seen some of them come up here and blow us away with their comments, and they're going to Columbia and UW. You know, that's we have to draw programs like that in, either if it's through amendments or the new proposal through the Fund 80, which Fund 80, unfortunately, what I want us to look out for is that these aren't just one-time things, that they should be coming once and then they come over and over, especially if they're succeeding. So the amendment is on the table here. And the details of it ain't hard to do. It's just you make a contract, make it a community partnership or something that isn't hard to do through a program that I think can help us going forward in the future. So in the amendment process, that should be in there. I think the $250,000 from the Fund 80, I could give you examples of what I think should get funded out of that, but I would like to hear what your thinking was when you set this up. What did you envision the type of program that will come to you? Are there ones that are talking to you, well, we could do this if we had this? What have you heard, and what are you envisioning as to who could come and get this money? Give us a couple examples of what you're thinking about.
Can I go ahead and answer that? Dean, I think I have a couple of thoughts on this. I mean, what comes out of the coalition, we don't know yet, right? I mean, they're still working and figuring out what their recommendations will be. So I don't want to, kind of pretend or predict what they might be. But I know that over the years, as Nichelle and I have talked, and especially in more recent months, about our commitment to Black excellence, a couple of things emerge. One is we know that there are community assets, right? And you're right about Simpson Street, an enormous asset that are being under leveraged, right? Like, we haven't figured out how best to leverage them. And there are definitely other examples. Like this board made an amendment years ago to support Jeffrey Lewis. Is that his name? Am I wrong? Yeah, the Circles of Support work, which has been, again, like we're seeing really, really promising outcomes, right, as a result of that work. And yet we don't necessarily have ways to expand it, right? So I think there are multiple examples like that of just partners out there who are doing great work that could be better leveraged. So I think there's that, and we think that the Fund 80 fund could really support that kind of expansion of community-based support. That doesn't mean that it will fund, this is to Nikki's earlier point, it won't necessarily be the right source of funding, depending on what some of the other recommendations are. Because there could be recommendations, and I would suspect there will be, that are totally new ideas, right, that do not exist yet. And I would hope there would be. And just so you know, we're trying to figure out, assuming that there'll be recommendations like that we want to support, right, how would we do that? And we can talk more about that in the future. But for now, we think that Fund 80 is the right resource for already existing community-based partners who have a proven track record, right, where we think we've got an opportunity to expand. But I don't want to get ahead of the coalition.
Just one thing on the Fund 80. There's
Yeah.
a benefit to Fund 80, which is that it's not under the revenue limit.
Right.
So as we may come into some tighter years without additional referendum authority and revenue limit, Fund 80 isn't within those constraints. So it does allow a little more flexibility as well.
How much is it?
Just, he's up and then.
Okay, I'm
quite
not-
honestly,
yeah,
I
let me
wanna-
respond
Yeah.
by my experience in cautioning that we don't create a cumbersome application process.
I agree. I agree.
We talk about being flexible, being nimble. I can give you examples of both city and county and other funding agencies that you will apply and go through a very cumbersome application process for very little money. And oftentimes you don't get the funding till after the event is over. So one of the speakers this earlier suggested that we become a little risky. And I have never been risk adverse in my life, but I've also failed enough times to know not to be reckless. The gray hair up here is not all because I got old. It's because I messed up and things happen and I got gray because of it. But at the same time, you learn through these things, and I know that I would urge not to be risk adverse and don't over complicate application processes and indeed move quickly. It's one of the reasons why I said I'm tired of Simpson Street not being formalized. I want it there now, and before I go, I want to see a formal relationship that can potentially expand into all kinds of opportunities through pathways and other areas that they fit right, they match so perfectly with. So there are other examples like that already existing in our community, and without us really developing these partnerships that are imperative to our success, hopefully with some extra funding from state people, we can move this forward, and I think it's worth the risk to move quickly on these types of ideas and programs that come to us.
James.
Kelly, I just want to go back to your statement around qualifications for Fund 80. Could you restate that again, maybe a little clearer, when you said, we talked about the funds and who those funds have to serve. And you mentioned parochial schools and all. Now, is there a priority, for example? And then when you talk about who the funds serve, is it all MMSD or Madison, City of Madison? What about surrounding areas? So can you just broaden that explanation out some?
Yep. So they're to serve the community of Madison. And because we have, a little surrounding that's not quite Madison, it would, for the most part, we tend to include, our Fitchburg areas, for example. It is not, when we set up a program, the program needs to be set up so that it is accessible to students outside of just MMSD. So if you put the program in the middle of a school day, it's not accessible to students outside of MMSD. If you were to put it after school in an MMSD school, that's just fine. If a parochial student has interest and wants to enroll, they would go through the same enrollment processes as other students. There's not a preference one way or another. Whatever the enrollment process is, it would look the same for one student and for another.
So you're using an example of MMSD facility, whether if this is after school, not MMSD facility.
We wouldn't have to provide a bus for a child, but if a parochial student from up the street were interested, we would allow them to enroll. That's exactly the way MSCR operates right now, and it's the way the majority of our after-school programming operates right now.
Any other question? Nikki.
Two questions. One, on the Fund 80, on the eligibility criteria, I know they don't have to, special need individuals. Is there a different formula that is used on our staff because it takes more staff time?
within MSCR,
Yes.
they have an inclusive budget
Beautiful.
that is specifically designed to ensure that special education students have access to
Great.
MSCR programming. This would presumably be outside of MSCR.
Okay.
Obviously, if the coalition wanted something different, we would work that way. And so these would be the conversations the coalition would embed into the programs they set up, the ideas that they have.
And the other one is, what is our budget in Fund 80?
Is that total budget?
Yeah.
I don't have it with me right now.
12, 13 million.
Yeah.
13 million was
Yeah,
the-
I was going to say 12, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I knew it was between 10 and 12, and I couldn't remember off the top of my head.
Yep,
It's-
about 80% of it goes to MSCR, and about the other 20% goes to various other programs and/or positions that are funded within MSD, community schools being one of them.
All right, I'm going to jump in. Sorry, Mary. I guess I want to make two comments. The first is kind of a bigger picture comment. There's three additions essentially to the budget in this discussion tonight. One is around advanced learning, one is around Black excellence, and one is around mental health. And they add up to about $1 million of the $3 million that we're adding in this year of new investments. So it's about 30% of our new investments into the schools. Given where we're at in the election cycle, I guess I feel like none of these are critical to build into the budget book at this time. And I frankly would prefer to wait for some of the folks in the room to weigh in on whether this is the $1 million that they would spend first, knowing that we don't have lots of millions of dollars to add in, with the possible exception of Fund 80, given that it's really not money we can use elsewhere within our schools. Or in a different type of way. So that would be my, I guess, and my second topic will be one that I'm very passionate about on advanced learning. So, one of these I very much hope is, and really more than one, I very much hope is funded, but just out of respect for the community and our voters, I feel like we should wait and give the three new board members an opportunity to weigh in. I hope not everything changes. There's been a lot of good work that's gone into these, and they're relatively specific, and I don't want to totally take a totally different path than I know your team, Jen, has been working on, but I also feel like that dialogue would be helpful. So that's at least my take here. I'm very happy to go with the group, but I want to do at least offer that up for discussion. The second one is specifically on advanced learning. And I'd love maybe, Lisa, if you can just share a little bit more about, we were presented a plan from ALEC that had a very significant investment in advanced learning in our schools. So we have about 4,000 advanced learners right now, K through 8. We have 23 advanced learning specialists. Most of them, or at least my personal experience, is that typically they don't know the kids very much, right? So they're doing other work. And in terms of non-white children, kids of color, there's 1,760 children of color in our advanced learning program. That's about 75 per advanced learning specialist. So there was a recommendation for a very significant investment. We came back, I think, with a proposal to have a smaller investment. Can you just talk about, what's the path there? I appreciate that doubling our ALSs is probably not going to happen, but just what's the path to get to something better than where we are right now for supporting kiddos?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. And I knew you were going to ask that. So
I know you did, so
prepared.
I have a couple more too.
Yeah,
so.
right. So first of all, we saw the staffing recommendations as really the beginning of a critical analysis of our advanced learning staffing model. And with the goal of providing high quality programming for both advanced learning opportunities and talent development for all students and, of course, our youth of color. So we wanted to start in a way this year by not just increases, so we want to increase at 4 schools to 1.0, but we didn't want to just increase the same because we think that first of all, there's some potential for schools maybe that might need more than 1.0, right? The same for all schools may not be the answer. We think that there might be an opportunity to take a look at sort of what the advanced learning folks are doing, and is it the right kind of job description? So if you noticed, we didn't just put forth a proposal that said at 4 schools just 1.0, doubling. It's actually 1.0 of advanced learning teacher leader position. So we're actually going to look at the job description. And just to explain a little bit about that, I wrote that down. So a teacher leader position is a position that includes responsibilities for coordination and accountability above and beyond that of a regular teacher. It comes with an additive pay stipend on the base. It is an appointed position, and it comes also with extra days. So a teacher leader works longer than a regular teacher on contract would. So the thinking behind this is that we wanted to try this out with specifically teachers that had, maybe some experience with gifted and talented programming or advanced learning opportunities or differentiation, and also be sure that these folks had some experience and some opportunity to provide professional learning opportunities for schools both before and after school. So we were envisioning this first step as that was our first step in the school-based FTE. The secondary piece that we addressed, the 1.0 for secondary, that position is actually across multiple schools and has greater responsibility for and management of some of the day-to-day operations of summer school, and also transitions between some of the grade levels, and also just we've acknowledged that we need more oversight at the secondary level. So that position actually carries with it a little more accountability, and we would actually want to write a new job description for that person as well. So for us, it wasn't just about increasing the same. It was also about increasing at some schools to the 1.0. We wanted to honor that, but also then be sure that we're really looking at the job description and the right roles and responsibilities that we wanted to try out, gathering some data and then adjusting if we need to next year. I would also say completely honestly, we weren't thinking of 3 a year incrementally. Like, we knew that, that takes you forever. And based on what we learn, we may want to move faster in the future or adjust differently, but we weren't seeing this as just a lockstep every year the same. We want to learn from this, and then based on what we learned, we wanted to move forth with the best information that we had.
So can you just maybe to dive into your teacher leader kind of role? I mean, right now the role is kind of one part testing, one part communication, one part coaching, and one part direct instruction. Maybe super rough. How do you envision that changing, if at all?
Yeah. So I think that a teacher leader job description and position description, first of all, could allow for some professional learning with teams before and after school, before the school year starts, after the school year starts, more explicit, I think, communication with families and the building leader. I think there will always be an element of direct service that happens. I mean, right now an advanced learning specialist, is half-time and spends all their time doing what you just said in that half-time sort of 7:30 to 3:30 window. A teacher leader position gives you a little bit more access to before and after school time, before and after the school year time, and some added responsibilities for coordination. So I think we've got to figure that out to get the best mix of all of those things, but we think that we'll get better support for schools and kids and programming in a teacher leader model.
Okay. Maybe just my feedback on this, and then again, I would recommend us holding on building this in, even though again, I'm very passionate about it until we have the opportunity for more input. But I guess I'm really looking for something that has more kiddo time, like more, like I keep hearing things that are not, I'm with a kid, helping them deliver instruction at a faster pace, a more challenging pace, like all of the things that we know our kids need. And if we're going to have building positions, I know I appreciate these aren't technically budgeted in the building, but I want them with kids. Like, I want them pushing our kids harder and better and engaging with them. And so I'm still not hearing that. And I appreciate that. I don't know exactly where we'll land, somewhere between 0 and 23 more people. It's probably a single digit number. I would love if we can have a role where we honor the fact that, like, our classroom teachers cannot do everything for 20 to 30 kids in a room. And if we want to do right by our 4,000 advanced learners in K through 8, we need somebody who can spend some time with them. That's point one. And then the second is kind of the flip side of the same, which is around instruction. I didn't see any recommendations in here around curriculum. There is a recommendation around instruction, and I think the take was we were going to map resources. I mean, our ALSs and our classroom teachers need a path to proper instruction, which is what the state, we are obligated to deliver by the state. Like, we're obligated to not deliver enrichment, but instruction, and we don't have a curriculum for folks to use right now. So again, that would be my pushback on the response here on the recommendations, is something that is truly a curriculum. I appreciate it's not going to be every one of the 5 domains right now. We've got something good to build from in math. What about pick one of the other domains and start to think about what's a proper curriculum K through 8 look like in advanced learning for art or literature or leadership, whatever, pick one. But I just don't think it's good enough for us to not have a curriculum for advanced learning, and we don't right now. So those would be my 2 kind of pieces of feedback on that. Maybe we can talk about that again. So Mary, I think you're going to pop in.
I would agree with Kate with regards to building these into the budget book versus waiting for new board members to take their seats and then have more thorough discussion around them.
Are you saying don't build them in? Because that's what Kate suggested.
Yes, I would agree with Kate on that. And then I am in support, and I would support the Fund 80. I've been working in after-school programs for over 20 years in Madison, and most programs are not well-funded, and yet serve MMSD students out of school time, and I think it would be a really powerful way to support the coalition in a way that has real voice, and isn't something that's just the strings are being pulled here, and so I think it's really a great idea, and I support that. And if and especially coming out of Fund 80, it's not going to draw from any other things that are our priorities here. I'm going to go to the early items because I do want to make sure that the new board members taking their seats, these are going to come up in 2 weeks, and since they are not part of this work group, the opportunity for them to get up to speed on these issues that we have talked about before but may not have been discussed recently is something we go over. So that would be the accelerated licensure and the G5 technology plan. So if you could go through and summarize what will be coming to the board, and why we are proposing early on those.
So I duly noted that a 2-week is a very short time period for onboarding new board members. We did provide for the board in the past a 1-page summary of ISLE, so I'll take that as my to-do to make sure the new board members have that, because I did not provide that in our kind of one-to-one briefing. So I'll do that. And so the idea of ISLE is it's a strand within our Forward Madison partnership with UW. And the idea is that we have a pain point, which is that we have a pretty good percentage of our CC teachers, our teachers who serve our special education students, who are on emergency license. And that is because there's not we have a high demand and there's not a great supply for CC teachers. So we bring in them unlicensed and work with DPI to get them on emergency license. We know that emergency licensed teachers are not the best to put in front of our students. We want licensed teachers who have been through all the training versus teaching while getting their license. That's the preferred model. So the idea is to start a pilot program with the UW where they can get their license accelerated. That we would work with UW to build the program, build the curriculum for our currently emergency licensed CC teachers, get them through certified to be full CC teachers. We have some funding from the state right now, and what we're looking is to supplement that funding with an additional $121,000 so that we can start the class up, get them recruited and into the program this summer already to help work towards solving that particular challenge of the district. Do you have more to add, Jen?
And how many would be served by that program?
25. 10 are already funded through DPI, an additional 15 with the supplemental funds that the board would approve.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very big deal. The program, I don't want anyone to misinterpret what Kelly just said. It is well underway. We've been working on it since the approval of the Forward Madison MOA last year. It's going to be really good. So not only will they get their licensure, but they're going to be well supported while teaching, which is incredibly important if we want to keep the teachers that we have. This is a licensure approach, but it's also about retention, right? Retaining special ed teachers, which we need to do a better job of.
Do they have to make any type of commitment that they will stay with us? Because we have had a hard time and they're very highly sought after.
I don't remember the number of years of the commitment off the top of my head, Mary, but I think that's in the summary.
Yeah. Okay. On the technology plan, so the ask is $525,000 as part of the tech plan. It's actually a reduction from what we thought when we actually built out the tech plan, which the board has approved, which is a year-to-year implementation phase over a series of years. We're in the second to last year. So we're moving into the G5, which is Group 5. It's a group of schools. When we originally passed the tech plan, we put all of our schools in different phased-in groups. So each year, we take on a next group of schools, not only for one-to-one devices, but overall for improvement of the technology access in our schools. So we're moving into the Group 5 implementation, and this particular kind of series of devices will be moving to a 4-year lease cycle, which has allowed us to save about $100,000 a year ongoing going forward. The reason why we need that particular funds now, as I mentioned before, is in order to continue the ongoing implementation of the plan. We do need to order the devices. They take a while to get. We have to put the whole, the RFP, select the winner, put in the order, get them delivered, and then our team asset tags them and puts all the MMSD, safety, security stuff that's needed. So that takes time. And we always want to make sure our schools are set up and ready to go at the beginning of the school year so they can start strong. We've gotten to a point where we have a pretty good process down after, multiple years of continuous improvement. So we know the science behind making this work for schools and making this work for kids. And we're doing really good with this plan. We're seeing positive outcomes for kids, positive outcomes for classrooms. The staff are supportive at this point, so we're excited to get near the end of the overall implementation phase in the upcoming years.
So
Yep.
then G6 is the last group?
G6 is the last group. And then there's not schools, but just other things you want to pick up along the way after that. Libraries, CTE, stuff like that.
Actually, Mary asked it already about what you, if we're on G5 or G6, so we're good.
I had a question on the restorative justice training. Are we following a model for that for the PD for next year, or is it more of like a research year for determining what we can do in the future?
That's a really good question. I'm going to ask maybe Jay to come up and help address that question about restorative justice. Come on up, Jay.
think we're.
Oh, it is. So by naming restorative justice as a foundational practice in the behavior education plan, we're trying to move beyond the approach that we've taken so far by identifying a few schools for a cohort to sort of move them through, and instead asking all 50 of our schools to recognize that there's a continuum from just getting started to being an exemplar site that other schools could visit. The support that we're working on comes from within our department, but also through partnerships that we have with a couple different community organizations. YWCA and Time Bank are our most fundamental partners that provide support, especially through Time Bank in building the youth court capacity that we see in our schools, which is also sort of a beginning of getting students introduced to the restorative justice process. But does that address your question?
Mm-hmm. And then can you talk about what you mean by like the new staff models that you're taking a look at for the partnerships?
Yeah, so through those partnerships, to date they've included staff members spending bits of time in a couple schools, so maybe parts of a couple days a week. We know that districts that have taken faster steps forward are using more of an approach of putting people full-time in a building whose sole dedication is to building out those systems within the school. We have some schools that have done that internally with their own staff, but through partnerships to date, we've only used that couple days a week model. So we're in conversation with our partners now to try out some of those staffing models where instead of being a little bit across a number of schools, we'll be more completely in a couple of schools, especially where we feel like we're already on pace and where the systems are already under development. Looking at the impact and then studying that impact of what does it look like if we move a full-time person into a role like that. We believe that that's kind of the direction that we'd like to go as a district, recognizing that as we continue to move our schools up that continuum, we need more people focused on that work. This pilot and being able to test that out with a couple of our community partners is a way of testing that out. Again, working creatively with our partners and also within our district to sort of build our capacity to expand use of RJ across all 50 schools.
Can we get a list of the schools that are involved and how long and whether the program you're considering it successful so far?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a question on the, I think, Nikki, you pulled that forward,
Yeah,
the mental health programs. Like, I'm just wondering what the urgency of that is, like now. I mean, like, why?
The reason,
may I
answer?
so,
Sure.
I mean,
That's
I'm
a
just wondering why.
suggestion.
I mean, I think Nikki was the one who presented this, and I
Yeah.
just want to know what the urgency of it now, and not wait until.
The reason why, although I respect the new board, and I am perfectly happy with the new board, no offense, we have kids every day who mental health is a massive challenge. We're losing and having kids with crises on a daily basis. I think the Bounce Back, which is as successful as it is, can have more of a start and evaluate more kids. Then we can actually start to make a dip into this program. And for that, you need to do it as soon as possible, mainly because the more time, the more kids. And that's my sole way of considering it. Wasn't which board it was going to be, and how many kids that could be helped in the situation.
Can you guys respond to what's the urgency on voting early?
I don't know if there is an urgency, but I see Armando right there, and is it all right if we let Armando weigh in on this? Armando, would it help to have it early approved? If so, how, or can it wait?
Yeah, so for those programs, it actually would likely not make a difference in the sense that those programs will have a beginning in the fall.
Okay.
So I think if
Wanted
at
to
some,
make sure that.
correct, yeah, if before the end of the year we have them secured, then we'll be able to plan for them for next year.
May I ask
Awesome.
a question, Chair?
Please, by all means.
My question is, will that hurt trying to find recruitment for specialized teachers, or do we have the staff to do that?
So it depends on the program. So for Bounce Back, well, all the programs are based on the community partnerships, and we've been very collaborative throughout the process. So I think our partners are very aware of our intentions to expand, and what we're hearing is that they'll be willing and will be able to meet that expansion for next year. Correct.
That's what I wanted to make sure of, because I didn't want to come back in the fall and say, oh, we don't have the ability to do this anymore because this is a crisis issue, and I seriously worry on the health of our kids. I think you can learn if you have undergone major amounts of trauma. It's going to affect how you learn. It's going to affect everything you do.
All right. Thanks, Armando. Gloria, did you have more?
Yeah, and then my other question or just comment is the Fund 80 again.
Yeah.
I think it's great that we're using that for Black Excellence and having the Black Excellence Community Coalition do that work.
Good.
I was just I'm chairing the behavior education plan subcommittee, and I just want to make sure that we are innovative, we push what we usually typically fund, and really invest in our kids who we are seeing every day, exhibiting behavior issues and trauma, and what does that look like, right? I mean, I'm all about investing in kids who will do really well. We need to continue to do that, but I also want to use these funds to invest in those kids who have been forgotten and who are lost in a system. And I know that having a coalition of people who understand these issues come together and figure out what that looks like, right? But I think it is an opportunity for us to expand on the work on the behavior education plan, while also, utilizing Black Excellence. But we just cannot forget about those children that we have really have forgotten. I just want to make sure that we do that.
Yeah.
I want to see that as we move through this budget process.
I appreciate that, Gloria.
All right, one very quick last comment from Dean, and then we're going to switch gears.
It was in regards to the early voting. There's no one that disagrees with the urgency of this program and the importance of it. Honestly, I wanted to take 2 more months to think on it more, because the expansion is a great idea. I'm not certain it's enough. So if I wanted to vote on it,
for mental health.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking with some people to see if that's what you felt you could do, or as opposed to what you really wanted. And I'm not certain that it was where we're at. So I wanted. I'm going to vote. Obviously, I would have voted for it, but I'm not. Maybe we should expand it. And I want to ask other questions too, as how it specifically would be coordinated with the behavior staff and their restorative justice staff too, where I see connections there that perhaps I'd like to know a little bit more on. So I wouldn't want to vote on it now, but until I had more information to determine if we should expand it more.
That makes sense to me. And all our team is still pushing themselves on it.
Okay. Do you guys have any maybe closing? Do you have what we need? And then
I
we
just
can
want to confirm
shift to
something. So what I've at least heard from 2 board members who will continue to be on the board is that the Black Excellence Fund concept is well supported. I'm leaving this table thinking I'm building that into my proposal.
Fund 80.
Fund 80. And that the additional new proposals we're going to put to the side for further discussion and not build it into the budget proposal.
And that will just change our next budget discussion. We can re-raise this, but
right.
Are you guys okay with that, or do you feel strongly about baking it into the budget at this point?
Can I just say one thing really quick, 10 seconds? What it is this: when Kate and I got on the board, there was a lot of, well, is this the new board? Is this the new board? I think that was
It was a little frustrating.
It was a little frustrating. I don't want to put anyone through that.
The budget is a very important thing to weigh in on.
Waiting because of that reason, because that caused some unnecessary drama that probably didn't need to be there to begin with. So,
Okay, fair enough.
frankly, I gotta agree with them on that.
It makes it a little tricky for us, right? Because this is the administrative proposal that we're supposed to be giving you at the end of the month, that you then, it's the official handoff, and then you get to change it.
Yeah.
So you're essentially saying to me, Jen, we don't actually want your full administrative proposal. Don't give us your best shot. Take a couple of those ideas out and table them. I think I can live with that. But it is different, right, from what we usually do, because I want to give you my best possible thinking.
Kelly, you have a comment, and then I have a suggestion. But
I would like to pressure test the aisle, not recommendations per se, but the budget dollars. I guess what I'm hearing on that one is that's
talking about the three new items.
Yeah, so the aisle stays?
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
No.
And frankly, Kelly.
Just the three new.
And frankly, Kelly,
Yeah.
to the budget dollar.
One of the three will get built in.
Maybe one suggestion could be is we just bake in a priority action plug. I just like
a
to the degree that
placeholder.
we're deciding among programs, et cetera, these guys might want to weigh in. So keep the dollar value there, but not actually decide what exactly. It's just harder to pivot.
Keeps it flexible.
And these guys deserve a right to weigh in on that.
I totally agree. We can figure out how to write that. Okay.
Well, and I think that I get where you're coming. I think that when I was new to the board, I was impressed at how we did budget, and that it was a lot of it. It wasn't just the administration handing us a budget and then we tear it apart.
It's been
right. It has been a collaborative approach, and although we at the end of the day we may not agree on everything, but I do value that, and so I think this is part of it.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think I've got it. We're going to build the Black Excellence Fund in, Fund 80. We're going to create a placeholder for the couple of other items. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. I appreciate that feedback. It's very clear. And we'll be ready for the end of the month.
All right, super. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Let's shift gears. We have two policies.
I gotta go.
I think we can do these relatively quickly.
think
Matt, do you
so.
want to?
I think this is going to take
I think
10
it's going to
minutes,
take
right?
I think it's going to be a 10-minute long
Yeah.
conversation.
Hey, Gloria.
Keep rolling, James says.
Keep it
Are
rolling.
you that eager to get to the end of this meeting? All right, Matt, take it away.
All right, these should be very quick. Policy 3540 is graduation requirements. This is a statutory change. There's a civic examination that all graduating students need to take. The legislature originally set a pass rate for that civics exam at 60%. They have now changed that to 65%. So in the entirety of the policy, I have changed one digit, and that's a 0 to a 5, so that our seniors can graduate and have the appropriate cut score, and they can receive their diploma. That is all I have changed in that policy.
Any discussion?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Let's
I'll
move
keep
on.
going. 4023 is internal transfers. This policy was amended because of a situation that has been recurring in the district, and that is we have students who, for whatever reason, move over the summer. Oftentimes, those moves over the summer are not planned moves. Sometimes it's due to eviction. Sometimes it's due to a sudden job change and a parent has to move. And pursuant to our old policy, those students would have missed the internal transfer window application window, and they would not be entitled to continue on in their old school. So in addition to a move, which may cause some fluctuation in their lives, they're also being required to move schools. The new policy allows for a student who makes that transition over the summer months to stay in their home school and continue to attend for an additional year. We believe it's equitable. We believe it's appropriate for kids for that consistency. And oftentimes what happens in those situations is those parents will reach out to administration and request an administrative transfer anyways. So there are we just want to make it easier for those students to stay in their home school and have some consistency in their lives.
Discussion. Can I just clarify, for alternative program settings that might be quite small, would this apply for all settings, I guess?
No, one of the other clarifications in language is if we place a student into an alternative program, that is not covered by this policy.
Okay, so this is general ed.
Exactly, yes. Special ed, DLI, when we are placing students, there are another set of rules, and oftentimes those other set of rules involve transportation. So.
All right. Comments? Good to go, Matt. Easy night.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. I think that is it, other than a huge thank you to James, Dean, and TJ. I don't know. I'm going to miss sitting next to both of you guys. So I've learned a lot from everybody here, and we'll miss a lot of the expertise. I'm very excited about being an all-female board. To be perfectly honest, I think it's awesome. But I'm no, really. But I am very much going to miss you, and for the board and for the district, it is a loss of a lot of experience. So we will try to do you guys proud. So, anyone else want to comment or say anything? And then there's some really cool plaques, I guess.
Well, I'll echo
Mary,
those comments. Do you want to say anything, Mary?
Yeah, I echo sentiments about an all-female board, but
we're gonna rock it.
But no, as I was looking forward to welcoming the new board members, I thought about how this has changed, and I think I counted up, and I think it could be 21 years of experience on the board that. And that says a lot about how much time James leading the charge with 9 years and Dean have put into this. And I think I've felt all along, all the time that I've been on the board, we always have board members who serve for the right reason. It's always about the kids. And we may have our differences of viewpoints on policies or priorities or things like that, but I never have once questioned that we didn't have the best in mind for our students, our staff, and the district as a whole. And while I welcome the new board members and the fresh perspective, I'm going to miss a lot the wisdom and the insights and just the good thinking that James and Dean have contributed.
And TJ.
And TJ.
And TJ.
Yep. Yes, and geez, I always knew that with TJ, there was someone who read every single paragraph, every single word, every single number, and his dedication, I will greatly miss.
Jen?
Yeah, I'm going to miss both of you a lot. I appreciate TJ. I'm looking over at his seat very much as well. It's I think you both have brought your full selves to this board, every week for all these years, and you've supported me. So I'm very personally indebted to you. I'm going to miss you a lot. I hope we're giving you your plaques, too. Do they get to bring this with them as well?
Yeah.
I love that. Put it up somewhere in your home office. Your carrot cake
is awesome.
And it is from Batch, which makes it very good. Please, everybody
really good carrot cake.
eat some of that.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, one last thing, that what, along with
You guys aren't
being all
making
female,
speeches,
the
though.
average
Not on the
age
record.
of this board is gonna go way down.
Youthful.
All right.
You're gonna look a lot better, too.
It's been a pleasure to serve. This is what this is all about. It's not about board members or the individual. It's about the city which we live in and the kids in the city. I'm proud to say that regardless of what anyone says about the Madison Metropolitan School District, I spent my kids spent, I always try to add it up, so like 25 years in this district. We had 3 kids to go through, and all 3 of them are performing very well.
Yeah.
And so I think that this board and previous boards have done an outstanding job of building this community and building this school district. And I'm confident that the new board members will continue to make this district very strong. I'm looking forward to sitting back, relaxing, and watching the new board members agonize over all of the decisions that they will have to make.
Well, you're at the Auburn.
And so, but I feel good about having an all-female board, having no issues with that at all. I think that change is good, and that's a change I'm looking forward to watching, lead our school district forward. So it's been a pleasure, and again, if anyone needs me or any voice for me, I'm on the phone call away. Okay,
All right, thank you. Like
Let me
hearing
second that a little bit and inform all of you that I have a 3-week-old granddaughter that's moving here next month, and will be in school here along with my kids that went through here. So now it's the sense of urgency still exists. So keep that in mind, and with your kids in the districts, and my kid still in there too. It is really the most important thing that a community can do, and we see so many people put the lie to that at the state and federal levels, that we got to do what we can to correct that here, and until we can get state and federal people to make that the truth. So I have a lot of deep respect for people that do this work. In many ways it's a calling. We can pay a lot of people good enough to make a good living off of it, but it really is more than just a job that we're doing here. And everyone that's coming on, I know, had that feeling inside of them 30 seconds after I met them. So you're going to continue to do great work, and just keep it going. Remember, my granddaughter's coming in soon.
All right, thank you
both. Good night, everybody.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Manager advisory vote. All in favor? All right. Any opposed? All right, that passes 5. I think we're 5 right now. 5-0. Thanks.